Hi guys, welcome back to another video. So in this one, let's talk about ego death, right? Um, I feel like that term, right, gets thrown a lot, around, especially like in the spiritual circles, right? But this doesn't have to be, only about spirituality, right, and everything that kind of goes into it, and everything that's associated with the ego death, right? Because even in psychology, right, it's all connected. But in psychology, we learn about the ego, right? We learn, well, first of all, about ourselves, right? And we hear the terms ego, right? And super ego. There's different things, right? But for the sake of this video, let's talk about kind of the ego death, right? And when we talk about the ego death, well, first we have to, or I have to mention, right, kind of what it is and what it is not, right? Because you, as a person, kind of maybe you have awakened and maybe you're enlightened and you understand these things, right? But I'm trying to explain these concepts to the people that maybe don't understand it fully or are just starting to get into these topics, right? So first of all, like I said, you are not, your thoughts, your emotions, this character, right? This character of Robert, right? That I'm playing, right? This character of whatever your name is, right? That you're playing, right? Who you really are is just awareness and consciousness that gets to experience all of this, right? And the way it gets to experience is through being in this body, right? And through this personality, this character, this ego identity, right? It has formed this ego identity through how you were brought up, right? How you were raised, the name you were given, right? The nationality, maybe, right? Where you were born, right? Whether you're rich or poor, right? It's that ego attaches a lot of labels to ourselves, right? And then you kind of develop this overall character that you portray, right? But it's not really who you are, right? It's not really who you are, right? It may seem a little far off, but I'm sure if you're watching this video, most likely you're on your own journey, life journey, spiritual journey, whatever you want to call it. And maybe you're familiar with some of these things, right? So, um, a lot of the times, like I said, when maybe comes point in your life, right, where you want to make some progress, right, especially spiritual progress, right, um, or maybe something wants to be created through you, right, something genuine, right, wants to come through you. And a lot of the times we will associate like, oh, I want to create this, but there's like there's a difference between the ego kind of wanting to create and creating from that space, right? Because the ego is very needy, very wants to be justified and loved and proven, right? And safe, right? That's a big one. So a lot of the stuff you want to create is very ego driven, right? But sometimes something wants to be created through you and you feel like a force coming through you that's not really from that ego, but you notice that it wants to come through you, right? But you don't know how, um, or how it's going to happen, right? Or how to allow it to happen, right? And this is where the ego death comes into play, right? Because, like I said, one, you may be like spiritually going through stuff, and in order to make that progress, that shift to another level, your ego will have to what we call, go through an ego death, right? Certain parts of that ego, right? You can get rid of it fully, right? Because it does serve you a lot in a lot of good ways, but it's gonna have to, some parts of it will have to die in order for you to advance, like I said, spiritually, or for something genuine to come through you, something that you know, universe, God, life, whatever you want to call it, right? It's all one, right? But something wants to be created through that energy, through this persona that you have, right? So in these videos, I'm gonna start introducing kind of like the MOE part, right? Which is my own experience, right? Where I talk about how it kind of like what experience in my life kind of has proven these things, or what I have gone through, right? So as I kind of, we're going on my own spiritual journey, right? My life journey for a long time, but my spiritual journey started, like I said, like a real journey, real spiritual journey started maybe 5, 6 years ago at this point, right? And for the most part, I've been going through it silently, right? Not making videos about this stuff, and like learning about this stuff and trying to teach others, right? Now I'm starting to do it because I really want to genuinely help people, and maybe uh, kind of bring some awareness what's going on to their life, right? So let's get back on track. The ego death, right? So my own story. So as I been progressing in my spiritual journey, I have had many little ego deaths along the way, right? And I say little, but as you're going through those ego deaths, it seems pretty horrendous, pretty hard, because it feels like a part of you is dying, right? Like a part of you is going through the most, whatever maybe fears you have, whatever anxieties you have, maybe, what scares you the most is being brought up to the surface, right? For you to deal with, right? Like I said, from my own story, going through life and progressing through it and making good advances, like in the kind of normal sense, right? Life progression. And then came to a point where something else wanted to be created through me, right? I wasn't the one doing it. And basically life, right, said, hey, that's great. You had your fun, you're building your life, right? I'm glad you're enjoying yourself. Now we need to work on those parts of you that are not maybe beneficial to your life's journey, your spiritual progress, or whatever else, right? You want to call it, right? So it's like, I'm glad you had your fun. Now it's time for the real work, right? And in order for, like I said, for you to make some kind of advancements, those parts of you are gonna have to die, right? So then it came a point that sounded very dramatic, by the way, but I'm glad I can laugh about these things now. But when you're in it, when you're in the thick of it, it's very important and very challenging, right? So like I said, I keep starting my story, and so I got to a point where I'll use an example. These videos, this channel, I knew I had to start it. I didn't know how, or how it's gonna come about, even how I'm gonna create it. It seemed so overwhelming. It seemed like such a big task, right? But what ended up happening is, I was working on myself for a while at this point, and a lot of trying to reverse a lot of bad programming, a lot of childhood trauma, right? A lot of stuff that wasn't mine, some stuff that was mine, right? So as I'm working through these things, certain things would come up that I needed to work on, like I said, from my childhood, or overcoming a limiting belief, right? And recently, before I started making these videos, like I said, I couldn't see a way even to which seems kind of silly now, me talking to you guys, right? But at that time, I didn't see a way of how I could ever do this. It seems so scary, overwhelming, too grand even. And some of you might think, well, you're just making videos. But when you have a lot of those, like your ego has a hold on certain things, and it's never a good thing, right? Or usually not a good thing. It's gonna do everything to keep you safe and prevent you from stepping out and maybe doing what you're supposed to, right? So right before I started making these videos, it seemed like I went through a lot of hard little challenges, and a lot of adversity. And this is like personal stuff. But when I was going through it, certain scenarios even, that when I was going through it, it seemed like I was, like maybe like you're dying, like a part of you, like your heart is breaking. It's very hard to describe, right? And maybe some of you can relate to this when you have been through ego deaths, right? Ego death, or little parts of your ego dying, right? So it seemed like I went through, after all that work that I have done previously, very like 4, 5, 6 really specific things that were very hurtful, but that I needed to bring to light, to the surface, to work on those things in order for me to make some kind of, spiritual progress, one, but also for even this channel to come about, right? And when it was happening, like I said, it seemed so hurtful, right? I remember one lesson happening, right? And then at night I was meditating upon it, right? And I kind of got to relive whatever I went through that week again, and it honestly seemed like a part of me was dying, right? Like my heart was gonna just shatter into a million pieces, right? It seems so horrendous, even though, I don't think it was, right? But it was part of my, the ego was dying, right? Something came to light that was very hurtful, something that I needed to work on and get through, right? So, and maybe in my other videos I will go specifically in each of those things, kind of, right? It's very, you have to be very vulnerable to put yourself out there and speak like very directly into your own experiences, right? But I'm gonna get better at it, and I'm gonna kind of reveal more of that as I go along, right? So I had to go through these 4, 5, 6 different little ego deaths that seemed like the end of the world. Very hurtful, very, it's a weird experience to somebody who's never gone through it, right? But I went through those things, right? And then in a weird way, it's like this space was created in me for something real, something genuine to come through me. And now it had that space to come through me, as opposed to before that those egoic patterns were holding me back and blocking it, right? Like I said, I never even, like, how will I make these videos, right? It seems so overwhelming. But as I got through those little ego deaths, it's like they moved that invisible block, that invisible fence, whatever is holding you back, away. And like I said, that genuine creative energy that wanted to come through me was able to come through me, right? Or start to come through me. So the ego death is very necessary for progress, okay? It is inevitable, right? Sooner or later, I feel like you're gonna have to go through it, certain parts of it, and it is not the easiest. It's not joyful, right? Like I said, I'm glad I can laugh about it now, but when you're going through it, it can be very tough, very challenging, right? So I hope this was helpful. And like I said, I could talk about ego death forever. I'll probably make another video eventually, because I always later on remember, hey, I forgot to speak on this part and I forgot to say this and this, right? And when it comes to these videos, and if you made it this far along, right, if you're still watching, in these videos I usually speak, from my own experiences, from my own heart, from my own mind, right? And sometimes I don't maybe include everything that I should have, right? But please, in the comments, write down your own maybe story, maybe your own helpful tips how to overcome ego death. And like I said, I make these videos to try to help somebody to because I'm going through certain things, you're going through certain things, many of us are going through a lot of similar things, right? And it helps us, right, on our journey, right, on our journey here. So hope this was helpful, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.